This video will show you how to replace the front brake caliper on a GMC Sierra 2500. This will be located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we have to do is safely raise and support the front end of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Once you've done that, if you have a hubcap, we're going to remove that. That can be done using a 22mm socket. After that, we'll remove all 8 of our 22mm lug nuts as well so we can remove the wheel. Now that we have the wheel off of there, let's continue on with one of our original lug nuts. We're just going to go ahead and start it on here. We want to lightly bottom it out. To start removing the brake caliper, we are going to have to open up our hydraulic system. Now for this, typically you would make your way up to the bleeder screw. You can tell that our bleeder screw is in very poor condition and it's not going to open properly, so I'm going to make my way down to the brake hose. But either way, the procedure is going to be the same. What we have to do here is open up either the bleeder screw or our banjo bolts, just enough that fluid starts trickling out. We'll make our way up into the passenger compartment and we're going to press the brake pedal all the way down to the floor as far as possible, and we can hold it there with something such as a pry bar. Of course, we have hand and eye protection at all times and a collection receptacle to collect any fluid. So for my application, I'm opening my banjo bolt here. I'm using an 11mm. There we are. That is open. I can see fluid making its way out. Now I'm going to carefully press on that brake pedal, holding it down to the floor. After pressing that brake pedal all the way down to the floor, you can see fluid did make its way out, but now it has stopped. This is exactly what we're looking for. We'll use our 11mm to lightly close that banjo bolt. We will be opening this up again, but for now, let's make our way up to each one of our slider pin bolts. We have one here that makes its way all the way through the caliper, the boot, and into the bracket, and then the second one is located just below it. We'll be using an 18mm to remove the pair. The first one, just go ahead and remove it. Quick inspection, start it back in. We'll start with the upper slider pin here. Quick inspection of that. As I mentioned, I'm just going to slide that back in. Let's make our way down to the lower slider pin next. Just go ahead and pull out both of those slider pins. We'll set them aside. Now we can take this portion of the caliper. We're going to carefully pull it out and away. Let's set this up here for now. We'll start removing each one of our 2 brake pads. Those brake pads should just slide out of place. As you remove them, give them a thorough inspection. If it looks like they're worn at an angle or worn low, you're going to want to replace them. We'll continue on to removing our caliper bracket next. For this, we're going to be using a 21mm for each one of our 2 bolts. Go ahead and remove the first one. A quick inspection, start it back in a couple threads. Go ahead and take hold of that caliper bracket. We're going to carefully remove it here. You want to be extremely careful with your brake rotor so it does not slide out of place. Set that caliper bracket aside for recycling. Now we can remove the flex hose from the caliper. We're using our 11mm again. Go ahead and take that off of there. There it is, friend. With the flex hose off of the caliper, we need to pay attention to our banjo bolt and our gaskets. Now on my application, the gasket is actually preventing my banjo bolt to be removed, so I'm going to go ahead and hold on to my gasket, and then I'll be turning my 11mm banjo bolt so I can remove the gasket and slide that banjo bolt out of here. Typically those gaskets will just slide out of place. You can set the banjo bolt and your gaskets aside. Now we need to really look at both sides of our flex hose. We need to confirm that we removed the gasket from either side. Now if the gasket is still in place, you can gently pry it out of there and go ahead and set it aside for recycling. Once you have one side cleaned up, we're going to use some sandpaper, just a light scuffing here to make sure we have a smooth surface for our installation, and then the same thing on the other side. I don't see a gasket here, so I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up with my sandpaper. Now with the brake flex hose in this position, we'll use a little bit of parts cleaner just to confirm there's no debris. Double check for those gaskets. This looks good. After you've cleaned that flex hose, pay attention to your steering knuckle, the two ears where your bracket bolts would go. Just want to make sure that nothing's rotted or weak here. Now let's prepare our brand new caliper for installation. I have it on the bench so we can start our disassembly process. The first thing I always like to do is remove my banjo bolt. We'll go ahead and take hold of that. We can turn it counterclockwise till it's fully removed. Your caliper will come with two brand new gaskets. You will be using the brand new gaskets and disposing of the original gaskets. For now, I'll just take both of those and set them on my banjo bolt. We'll set that aside. Continuing on, we're going to separate the caliper from our caliper bracket. We're going to remove our two 18mm caliper slider pins. Let's set this portion of the caliper aside temporarily, and we're focusing on the bracket itself. Now looking at the caliper bracket itself, we need to clean the areas along each side of the caliper bracket where our bracket tins will sit. I'm going to be using some high temperature caliper lubricant. We're going to do a light coating on each of these areas. Once you have a coating on there, we're going to continue on with our caliper bracket tins. Now looking at the tins, you're going to find that one side has a larger diameter area than the other here. So we want to make sure we have it in the proper orientation with the area with the larger diameter facing towards where our slider boots would be. We'll just get this in position here. We're pressing it up against our caliper bracket as far as possible, and then just double check to make sure it's secured in place. Repeat the process for the other side of the bracket here. High temperature lubricant. And our brand new caliper bracket tin. Now we can look at this portion of the caliper. As we turn this, we're going to continue with our high temperature lubricant. We want to lubricate each one of our two caliper pistons, and then along the back side of each of our three outer ears on the caliper itself as well. This is going to help with vibration dampening and noise reduction. Let's make our way over to the vehicle. We will be lubricating each one of our two caliper slider pins during the installation, but for now, let's continue on with installing the bracket. As far as the bracket, I've cleaned the threads on each one of my two bolts and applied red thread locker. Once they're both started in, go ahead and snug them up and then torque them to 221 foot-pounds. Next, it's time for our two brake pads. During the installation, you want to make sure you install them in the same positioning as when you had removed them. If you're replacing the brake pads, you want to make sure that the outboard pad has both of the wear indicators, one on each side. The inboard pad is going to have one wear indicator, and we want to make sure we have that on the lower side. We'll start with the inboard pad. That should slide right into place fairly easily here. You should not have to hammer it into position. Now it's time to lubricate our caliper slider pins. When we add our lubrication, we're going to lubricate the entire smooth shafted area all the way down to where the groove is, close to where the threaded portion of the slider pin is. We don't have to lubricate the threaded portion for that. You can use some thread locker if necessary, but you definitely do want to lubricate the slider pins themselves. Let's get our caliper in place. As we bring this into position, we're carefully sliding it over each one of our 2 brake pads and our caliper slider pin boots. While holding the caliper in this position, let's continue on with our slider pins. We'll take that slider pin, we're bringing it through the caliper, through the boot, and into that bracket. Go ahead and start that in by hand. Once you have both of those started in, go ahead and snug them up and then torque them to 80 foot-pounds. It's time to prepare to install the brake flex hose to the caliper. Now for this, you're going to find that I have my brand new banjo bolt and one of my brand new gaskets. I'm going to slide that through this portion of the flex hose. On the other side of the flex hose, we'll install our other brand new gasket. Now I have a brand new gasket on each side of the flex hose. We'll take that flex hose and bring it into position. We're going to start that banjo bolt into the caliper by hand so we're sure we're not cross-threading it into the wrong positioning. Prior to tightening the flex hose, inspect the flex hose to confirm it's not twisted in a way that's going to restrict brake fluid flow. Assuming it's good, let's go ahead and snug this up. Now at this point, this is bottomed out. I want to continue tightening this so I can lightly compress each one of my 2 gaskets. That's going to help prevent any fluid leaks. For this, I'm only going to go another 1/4 turn. We'll just double check to make sure that this is properly secured. It should not move around in any way. Go ahead and remove your bleeder screw cover. For that, you should be able to just take hold of it. We'll pull it out of place. At this point, make your way into the passenger compartment, remove the brake pedal depressor, and we're going to make our way back down here to open our bleeder screw. We still have our collection receptacle under here. We're using a 10mm for that bleeder screw. We'll go ahead and open this up. Now what we need to happen is a steady trickle of fluid needs to make its way out of the braking system. Fluid will have to make its way all the way from the master cylinder, down through the brake lines, the brake flex hose, into the caliper, and then out through this bleeder screw. This may take a moment. Now at this point, you can tell that I have a steady trickle of fluid making its way out of here. I've let this continue dripping for several seconds here, and I can see that there's no air making its way out of the system. We'll use our 10mm to close this. Now, after you're sure that you have no air making its way out of the braking system, the next thing you want to do is make your way into the passenger compartment and pump up the brake pedal. You need to confirm it feels firm. If it feels like it's soft or sinks in any way, you may still have air trapped in the system. If that's the case, you have to do a manual brake bleed. Otherwise, just go ahead and clean up your mess in this area and reinstall your bleeder screw cover. Let's remove our 22mm lug nut. Now it's time to reinstall that wheel. Once you have the wheel in place, start on all 8 of your 22mm lug nuts. We're going to lightly bottom them out. We'll get the wheel safely back down on the ground and then torque each of them to 140 foot-pounds. Now I've got the wheel back on the ground. Let's go ahead and torque each of these lug nuts to 140 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Torqued. If you have a center cover, install that now. We'll get the center cover in place. We're starting on each one of our caps using our 22mm socket here. Just snug them up. Double check to make sure it's secured in place. Okay friend, let's get started on bleeding the brakes. We want to start under the hood at the master cylinder. Prior to opening it, let's make sure we use a clean rag, and we're going to clean along the top of the master cylinder and your master cylinder cap. We want to prevent any miscellaneous debris making its way into the braking system. After you've cleaned the area, take hold of the cap, turn it counterclockwise, and remove it. You can tell exactly what type of fluid to use, .3 as I mentioned. Of course, we're going to inspect our seal. You want to make sure it's not swollen or damaged in any way. This does look good, so I'm going to temporarily set it aside. Continuing on, we want to remove as much fluid from inside of the master cylinder as possible so we can confirm that we have only clean fluid in here for the rest of the bleeding procedure. Now I've removed as much fluid as possible from the master cylinder. We're topping it off with our clean .3 brake fluid. If you do happen to spill any brake fluid on any painted surface, you need to make sure you rinse it down with some clean water. We're just bringing this up towards our maximum line here. Temporarily reinstall the cover so no miscellaneous debris makes its way in while we continue on our brake bleed process. Now to bleed the brakes, we're going to be starting at the passenger side rear caliper. Once we've completed bleeding that caliper, you're going over to the driver's side rear caliper and you're going to repeat this exact same process. After that, you're back at the master cylinder. You need to top it off because typically the fluid will go down. After you've topped it off, go to the passenger side front, you're going to bleed that caliper, and then you're ending at the driver's side front caliper. After you've completed bleeding all brakes and cleaned any mess, you're going to reinstall your wheels, and then you're making your way back up to the master cylinder to top off your master cylinder one last time with that clean .3 brake fluid. As you can tell, I'm at the passenger side rear. We're going to start bleeding the brakes, and this is going to be easiest if you have the second person inside of the vehicle. They're going to pump up the brake pedal for us approximately 3 to 5 times. They're going to hold that brake pedal, let me know, and I'm going to open up my bleeder screw. When this happens, we're waiting to see only a steady trickle of fluid making its way out with no air bubble, and of course we want to make sure it's clean brake fluid as well. We have a collection receptacle under here, and of course hand and eye protection at all times. Go ahead and pump the brakes, please. Got our 10mm wrench. Let's do this slow here. We want to try to make sure all the fluid goes into our collection receptacle, and of course we are watching for air bubbles making its way out of the system. Go ahead and pump, please. Now, once you feel as though you've removed all air from on this side braking system and we only have clean brake fluid making its way out, we're going to clean any mess. And as I mentioned before, make your way over to the driver's side rear caliper. Repeat this exact same process. After you've cleaned up the mess on that side, you're going to want to make sure you stop at that master cylinder to top it off. Make sure that's dry and clean so we can double check for leaks in the end. I finished the driver's side rear, so I'm at the master cylinder. We can remove the cap, top it off with our clean .3. That looks good for now. Let's make our way to the passenger side front caliper next. At the passenger side front caliper, if you have a bleeder screw cover, go ahead and remove that, of course. We're still going to be using our 10mm for each front caliper. We have our collection receptacle under here. Go ahead and pump up the brake pedal, please. Go ahead and pump. That looks good. You can release the brake pedal, thank you. Now obviously you want to bleed the brake as many times as you need to remove as much air as possible, and we only have clean brake fluid making its way out, so I'm going to go ahead and clean my mess on this caliper. We'll reinstall the bleeder screw cover since I did remove one. After that, I'm going over to the driver's side front. I'm going to repeat this exact same process. You're going to make your way up to the master cylinder afterward. After bleeding all brakes, we're at the master cylinder. Let's go ahead and top it off one last time. We can see where our maximum line is. This is where we need to be. Reinstall your master cylinder cover. Clean any mess in this area. Okay, friend, we finished bleeding our brakes. You want to double check for leaks and reinstall all 4 of your wheels. The torque for your lug nuts will be 140 foot-pounds. Okay, friend, we finished our installation and bled our brakes. We've cleaned any mess and double checked for leaks. Now the next thing we need to do is go ahead and take the vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.